Hello and welcome back to Speak. I drew the short straw today, so I have to do the fucking intro. Um, Today we are joined by Sam Neal. When we threw out to all of our vast thousands of listeners for questions of topics, Sam came up with a clinker of one. So, Sam, could you give us a bit of an intro, tell us about yourself, and tell us about your question and why it's on your mind?
I can. Thank you. So I'm Sam. I'm a health and safety consultant. Worked in safety for, this is the typical safety introduction, isn't it?
Love it.
Worked in safety for X amount of years, 16, 17 years in a multitude of different industries, distribution, retail, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Um, my question was, how do we measure success?
Why that question? What's underneath it? What bothers you about that?
So there's kind of two elements to it.
Yeah.
And because I think when you ask that question, you naturally dovetail into how do we measure safety performance.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to look at it from a slightly different angle, in the sense of how do we in the safety profession measure our success. And it's bothered me for a long time, and I've never really come across or found a concrete answer to that question. And in sort of my role now as a health and safety consultant, I work with a lot of health and safety managers, and I can see the frustration sometimes. Well, a lot of the times, I'll be brutally honest. And I have conversations, they turn more coaching and mentoring, where they don't think they're doing a good job. But actually, when you strip it back and you talk to them about what they've done and what they've achieved, and over a sustained period of time, you actually go, well, yeah, you've actually done a really good job.
Yeah.
But it's never really been defined what success looks like to them. And I think personally that is a bit of an issue across our profession.
Yeah.
That's the reason for the question.
I mean, you've got so much juice flowing. I'm literally just taking notes. Now, you want to dive in with initial thoughts, Elisa?
Yeah, because obviously, yeah, I would have first gone to that thought of measuring success, numbers, data, all that jazz. That's where you would automatically go, and safety performance type stuff. But our success as safety professionals, and to have that not tied to those, is fucking vague, man.
Oh God. So I mean, I love the two angles, isn't it? Because it's like how
can you have one without the other?
Good question.
Oh my God.
Well, look, you definitely can't have fucking really scary stats and be like, I'm great. That's
yeah. I think it would give you an indication as whether you're doing a good job or not. Well, it should do anyway.
I absolutely love this, because I think I've always focused on the measure, and actually I have real challenges and real issues with the way that we measure safety now and what success is. And typically I end up really annoying my safety teams with saying all the stuff that we measure is garbage. Like, I don't really want you to talk to me about riddles, because that's either Jeff didn't come back to work on Friday or we've snapped a leg. And I kind of, someone's pulled their back and not come back and they've decided to take 2 weeks off versus a really major injury. It just gets lost. So it's not success whether you got low riddles or not. It could be issues all over the shop, or it doesn't tell you if actually the major things are coming down. So I made issues over measuring safety performance success, and we can dig into that. But that thing, I was just writing down there about you as an individual. How do you know you're doing well? And I wrote down stakeholders, harm, and then things happening without you being there. They were the sort of three things that were on my mind. And the harm bit and reducing harm feels like that as a professional, that's what we should be aiming to do, right? Underpinned by compliance, fine. But what we're really here to do is make sure everyone gets home. That's the kind of nature of our profession and what we're all kind of aiming for. How do we make it better? But it only really matters if people are starting to do things differently. We've only really had a great impact. There's only really success in our work if we don't have to be stood there for the safer action to happen. If we are literally watching workers make decisions that are great for them when nobody is looking, that's great. And if that's what's adding, if that's what's feeding into like reduced harm stats, that's great. But the individual thing, I was just thinking, one of the things I always take a proper run up to, because I focus so much on harm, is great stakeholder management. Like, as a professional, you need to take your whole organization with you, every tier, every level, and really pinpoint those that have mass influence, because they need to influence and care about what you care about. So if you've got none of that right, you're sort of crap, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's just like flowing thoughts. Any, like, jump in at any point, because this is really intriguing me.
I still, like, we still kind of, I suppose, haven't split it out of like personal, is it personal success and like career progression?
Yeah.
Are we talking about measuring it that way versus the success of the
you
outcomes
as a
you're achieving?
And then you as in the profession, so the measuring success in safety, working in safety, what does that look like? And then measuring success as you as a safety professional, are they your two? Yeah.
And I think and the challenge that you've got is that are they intertwined? Are they mutually exclusive? You know, if I've been in situations where I've been tasked with, you know, we want to change the culture. Okay, great. What do you want? You know, we want an open and honest, transparent. We want people to report things. Great, cool. That's what we'll work on. 6 months later, Sam, the accident stats gone up. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. You've just
reporting now.
You've just asked us. Oh no, we don't want you to do that anymore. Right, okay. What does success look like for me as in this role or in this capacity as a health and safety manager, head of safety, health and safety director? What does the success look like for me as an individual? And the one of the individuals I sort of referenced earlier, you know, I've been doing some work with his company. We did some continuous improvement reviews last year, and we're going to do sort of a rolling program over the next couple of years. And there were quite a few things that flagged up, and he was like, "That's great, cool." And he just looked at it completely positively and kind of said, "Well, that's a bit of a win for me." And I was, you know, I was like, "Okay, why?" Well, because those are the things that I've been flagging in my capacity, in my role, and that's going to support me now to kind of affect change and do things differently. But he was also kind of a bit despondent because it was like, you know, more stuff that he's got to add to his plate. And we had a little bit of conversation around what does success look like for him. And I said, every time we go out on site, everyone is shouting your name, coming over. How you doing? You know, this is the problem. Thanks for sorting that out last week. We need to look at this next week because we've got X, Y, and Z coming in and we need to do a risk assessment. I was like, that's your success.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the continuous improvement reviews. You know, we'll kind of deal with that. But the fact that you've got this amazing relationship with the people that are interacting with that risk on a daily basis and are willing to come and tell you things and be upfront and honest, that is your success.
Yes.
And he kind of stepped back and was like, okay. But that's not always naturally defined.
Or measurable, in fact.
Yeah. You know, at the end of the year, when someone gives you your performance review or an appraisal, you know, how have you done this year? Well, accidents through roof. But everyone says hello to me.
Yeah. The actual traditional measures are looking gnarly but that's because everyone is genuinely feeling safe to say, did this thing. I find it's always the bit where everyone gets bum clenchy when you say, like, we can do this and we can step forward, but for the next 18 months, you're going to see stuff that you're not comfortable with. What you have to understand is nothing's getting worse. You're seeing reality. And actually it just means that we're bringing that to the door. So it's an interesting one. I think you fell on a phrase that I think is where all of this starts, whether you're talking about in a personal capacity or changing safety or progressing safety. It's defining your measure of success. And I just did this presentation at work about transformation. And I was just like, well, it's 3 steps for me. But the first 2 are 100% is define your version of success. And if you're working with an organization to help them, you're also saying to them, what's success for you? Like, what does that look like? Forget the measure, forget whether it exists or doesn't. Like, what does success look like? And I think probably one of the things that I've never really done is look at success as an individual. What does that look like? Because we have these like predetermined paths, don't we? Tech memberships, chartered, fellow, and that's supposed to be success. But what is it for you? I think is a great question. It's sometimes much easier to define in the work sense what success looks like. But the individual ones, probably a bit of a deep seeking. So definitely a personal sit down and reflect moment, I reckon, defining your own version of success.
I think there's very much a personal sort of attachment to it, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. There's a right or wrong answer. I think the challenge comes when your personal belief or your personal opinions of your success doesn't necessarily align to that of what the company thinks success looks like for you in that particular role. And I think we butt heads in that particular space because we get unfairly tarnished with that lost time frequency rate. That is your measure of success. And I've been there and I've done it, and I've I'm honest to say that it's been part of my team's sort of approach was to reduce the lost time frequency rate over the next 12 months. Is that really the safety team's measure to own for their success?
Yeah.
No.
And can it even, I think, and as well, if you came from a standpoint to say if you're defining success, it should be something you can celebrate, truly celebrate. When we look at the things that we measure now, when you look down them, how many times has that been in any room ever? And someone's gone, yes, like winning. This is a celebration moment. Great things are happening. Like, we don't celebrate. And I think that's because we properly measure too much. And we also overshare, I think, information at too many levels. I think really big and punchy, what really are the top level measures? We say KPI all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
But no one actually says the first thing is key. That you can have indicators everywhere, but we just want to see the key ones. And then every layer in your team gets to be the custodian and co-owner of their next level down, that precursor to the big ones. And it also allows people to feel accountable for the journey and feeding into the big picture. So, yeah, I think those safety reports that have got 12 pages of appendices of all the different charts and like please put them away. Like, we don't need those. That's not success.
But that's how we measure our success, is it not? And I think that's the problem. And I guess the reasoning behind the question is there's got to be a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
But then, like, businesses then also need to change their frame of reference of what success is. Because even if you look at a job description, we'll say on an ad for a safety professional, it is all that usual fucking really dry shit. And there's never like, oh, go out and like have brilliant conversations, create great relationships, make connections between different parts of the business. All this kind of stuff is not on there. And if you ask someone, if you're in an interview and you ask somebody like, well, what does a successful person in this role look like, or what will they have done for you to be like, wow, that's amazing? They'll just fall back on that usual LTI type stat. And then it's like, I suppose personally, we are so linked to that. Yeah. And we're linked to the business's idea of what success is. It becomes our own idea of success. I think it's so ingrained in our profession now that it for me, I don't think it can be separated. And as much as we go, safety is not my response. Like, it's like the safety of the entire organization is not my personal responsibility. And people get fucking squeamish about that and they don't like to hear it, where you go, safety isn't the safety manager's job, but like, it's not. But like, sorry to break it to you guys, but like, people can't get away from that. And I don't think, like, it's hard even when an event happens. And like, I was talking to a safety manager 2 weeks ago, and we were in a kind of a learning teams environment, and they were describing this event, and you could see they were taking, like, they were like, there was this level of personal attachment to it, of like a sense of personal failure almost. You're gonna go, fuck, that's tough to be carrying that around.
Yeah.
And it's not sustainable for people to carry that level of, I suppose, pressure on themselves. But if you go, oh, there's an incident or somebody gets seriously harmed, and then I therefore have failed as a professional, as a person, it's fucking deep. And it's hard to separate us from it.
I think the really interesting, I started a pretty good debate about this defining success thing a couple of weeks ago, and it wasn't safety. So I was saying about what I do in safety, but to a massive team of people that were not safety professionals. So it's really interesting just to see how it...
My favorite kind of people.
Yeah.
No offense, listeners.
So, and what I was saying is, for defining success for me, there's 3 questions. And one is, what is your definition of success, but not for you as a person, but in a professional sense? So for safety, what is the definition of success? And I did put on the slide, I remember, I put hashtag not about you. This can't be the you show. This is a professional question. What is safety's version of success? Question number 2 is, what is the business, and not in a safety context, what is the business's version of success?
Okay.
And then, do they overlap? Do they feed each other? Can they help each other? And if you start there, it's so interesting to say, okay, so typically for safety, the measure of success, and this is my reflection of our profession because everybody's really different, is reducing harm, getting people home. That's 100% what I think our profession's about. That's my view of our professional success. The business measure, typically the business is trying to ensure that it is being cost effective, it's being productive, and it's like, you know, meeting all of its goals or whatever. Do they overlap? 100%. Tell me where ripping harm out of your organization isn't going to save you money, put people back on your floors, give you time back, reduce your cost of repairs, you know, replace equipment or damage to buildings. Tell me where safety is an absolute core to business success when you look at them that starkly. So if you start with professional success, business success overlaps, my next bit is then, well, how do you measure those and what are those? And again, not using any of the pre-existing reports. And typically one of the things that I enjoy doing is doing this without ever looking at a safety report or a business. I don't want to know what you already do. I want the clean head version. And sometimes they really massively overlap. And your versions of success, you can translate into business measures, and you can talk in a business's language to say, here's how I'm helping you. Well done for really getting involved in this, guys, because you, by crushing harm, have put this amount of time back into your business or reduced all of your, you know, your costs or claims or whatever by this much money. And it's such a stimulating conversation because the business are like, we're winning. And you as a professional are, we're winning. And I think that's my kind of favorite process, really. But yeah.
Just to go, and you said one of the things you said in there was quite interesting around, and I don't disagree with you at all, really, that you know, one of our successes is to get, you know, remove harm, get people home. If we don't do that, have we failed?
I mean, I'm speaking from my heart here. I think if we are not tackling harm, I would say, what are we doing? That would be all. I think all the other things we do, the stakeholder management, the learning businesses, where it's so that we can communicate better, we can get more people on board, because the one thing you cannot do is you can't build Rome alone, right? You absolutely need people on board. So I would definitely, yeah. I mean, that for me, and again, that's just my thing. If I wasn't tackling harm effectively, and that's not statistically, I mean, genuinely, forget, let's say all the stats are perfect and they show you really are getting more people home than were going home before. For me, that's what I'm here for. But what's your feeling? If you're not doing that, are you doing a great job?
And this is the bit where I get stuck.
Yeah.
This is the bit that I find I have this sort of internal battle, because I see and I work with safety professionals who are doing an amazing job, but they will take that harm, or that not sending people home in one piece, very personally. I've seen safety managers in tears because of a particular incident or injury that they've had on site, and they've taken it. It's my fault. I've not done enough, and I can't help but think there's part of me that says you don't own that. That's not your failure if you've done everything that you can do.
Yeah.
To reduce that risk, and I think it's this space that I struggle with. Go on, Elisa.
Go on. I could see it, like,
because it's just because I was thinking the same thing earlier of like, oh, fuck, somebody's hurting, that's all my fault. So then the flip side, are you so fucking amazing that if there's no incidents, that's all you? Like, that, and there are safety people out there with that ego hero complex.
Makes me feel a bit sick, that does.
Oh my God, it gives me the fucking ick. I used to work with this guy and he was like, saving lives, Lisa, saving lives. I was like, will you calm the fuck down? Like, you're not running out of burning buildings, like, calm down.
Yeah.
But and to, like, yes, in the big picture stuff, yes, we are, but like, just, you're doing manual handling training, all right? Just relax.
Yeah. Sit down, Bob.
Just take it all the way down. But but it's that thing of, if you're owning it completely, as in like, oh, something's gone wrong, that's all my fault, do you then claim all the success as well? And I don't think we can ever do that, because any of the success that happens is from like the people doing the work.
100%. Yes.
Either because of or in spite of the systems. So yeah, I just find that really interesting.
I think it's interesting as you defined it there, Sam. I was thinking that I feel like the question that you posed and then the feeling from it were like that really interesting, like the other side of the coin, which is like, is harm what we're here for? If we're not doing that, is it success? But it felt like what you were saying is, if it goes wrong, does that mean you didn't do your job? Yeah. And I 100% have to say that it can't be the same as success is not about you as an individual, which is why in the process I tend to take business through, it's not you, right? It can't be you. The same as you can't control everybody's debt. And I always use this example, right? Until you can control the weather, until you can control people having babies and having fatigue, rowing with their wife, until you can control all those elements, you will never be able to control harm. What you can do is really learn as much as you can, influence, get close to the operation so systems are as realistic as possible, and create opportunities to make great decisions. You can't be everywhere. You can't influence everybody. And actually, I've met some people that just plain old don't give a monkeys about anything that you might have designed, even if it was with their best colleague ever. They just don't want to play. And that's not the fault of any safety person, unless it's a Bob that's like, we've met them, right? They're just like, because I am amazing at this. I'm just brilliant, and we're going to change the world. It's like, no, Bob.
This is my calling. Okay, all right. It's actually a vocation. I'm like, okay, Bob.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Relax. They wear a safety badge. Like, no.
I've got it on a mug somewhere. No? Shall I get you one for Christmas, Lisa?
Yeah, do it. I want one. I am the hero, and I don't wear a cape.
But troll me with a safety mug.
I tell you what, though, it breaks my heart that anyone could see something major and think it's them. That's just...
yeah. And it's and this is why I'm sort of really interested. And I said, at the beginning, I've never really found the right answer, because I haven't. I'm you know, I'm brutally honest, and I get asked quite a lot by people that I work with, you know, what is success like? What should we be measuring? What should I report to the board? And 9 times out of 10, I just go, do you want the standard stuff, or should we look outside the box a little bit and see what else we can do? And their board will go for the standard stuff.
Yeah. Do you know, I think if you do that first part, that business success part and professional success part really well, it's quite interesting that I will only ever really talk to boards about 4 things that are reactive and 2 things that are proactive. But the proactive aside, there's some standard stuff like hazard reporting, near miss reporting, fine. And it's nothing that, and I've made these up myself, right? And I've made safety teams in 2 organizations recrunch all data.
Get your pens out. Get your pens out. She's about to drop them. Here we go.
So the top 3 things, and honestly, my teams want to punch me so badly because I will put all of the stats out and just say, tell me where you're like, this tells me a great thing that happened or didn't happen. It's never. So fatality, obviously. Measure, need to really dig underneath all of those. And then the 2 that I have created myself, which is life-changing injuries, which is changes to your body mobility or ability in any way. So this includes Jeff lost a fingertip or had like reconstructive surgery in his hand or has lost an eye, whatever it is, mobility, ability, and permanent changes to body. And then life-changing injuries, and then MRIs, so major recoverable injuries, snapped bones, high trauma. Yes, you will walk again. Yes, you will regain the function of your arm, but the trauma is huge. So I focus on those for fatalities, MRI, LCI. And the reason I do that is they're the things that really hurt. And they're the things that will change people's life from a psychological perspective and a physical perspective. And they are also the ones, if I hark right back to business success, they're the ones that will probably end in claims. They will end up with long-term sick. They will end up probably with people with psychological issues having witnessed it or been involved, all those sorts of things. And they are the ones, not only do I only talk to the boards about those, but they're the ones that have the hyper focus from my team. They are the ones that, like, if you have a very skilled safety team that are skilled in root cause analysis, you get into those. That's it. Total focus. And when we find that root cause, it is removed wholesale, not just one local, it's all. And the measure that I have in the middle that is the bridge gap between like the traditional, the business measure and the safety is LTI, bizarrely. Everyone hates that. But what I try and say to organizations is, that's the time I've given back to you. If you see that coming down because we're focusing on these top 3, this is just a demonstration of what I've given back, or what the team have given back, or what the local teams have given back. Yeah. They never really want to quantify the minutes or the hours. They're just like, this is a good indication, because it's an indicator, right? It generates great convo, a proper small pool of things to really dig into and understand, and really decent root causes to go after. And them going up or down is not success or failure. It's having an insight and actually having ability to go after something. So yeah. And then all the traditional stuff, you know, gets different parts or lines of the team or different parts of the business can own these things and really go after them. But if I really want to know what's going on, I want to know the high trauma, high impact events. So, I mean, so I do it a little bit differently, but I really enjoy the conversation, the stimulation around them. And when you hear my last organization, I sat in a boardroom after about 6 months of changing these stats, and I heard somebody say, is that an LCI?
Yeah. I love when that happens. When you hear somebody use the language you've been using, it's like, fucking yes.
And then followed it up with, have we changed somebody's life? And I was like, and we get it. Have we changed somebody's life? Well done. You're just like, everyone's here. Everyone's come. And bizarrely, you can't measure that, but that felt like a professional success, right? I've got a CEO saying, have we just changed somebody's life? Like, great conversation. Let's talk about that. Like, so yeah, I just throwing it out.
That happened to me once before. I ended up doing a little happy dance outside the boardroom when I heard the director going like, yeah, but like, did we set him up for success? I was like, fuck fucking yes. And I had been using that phrase for like 6 months, literally every second sentence. I was like, setting up for success, guys, success. And they were like, what the fuck is this one rabbiting on about? And then they started saying it themselves. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Win.
And that's a little success moment, isn't it? Those are little wins that probably mean more than the big wins sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt.
Just, Crystal, those things that the stats and the information that you use to talk to the boards, is that to provide a bit of context, I guess, is that to measure success, or is that to monitor? That's probably not the best way of asking that question. Would you measure the success of your team based on those statistics?
Interestingly, no. For me, it's an awareness of our impact and I need to talk like broadly in working with any organization. The reason I would talk about those is to bring awareness to that board that this is the real impact that we have. And it's to stimulate when it's gone wrong, you now understand how it links to your business success. So you're now thinking these are really terrible events to happen. Them going up massively, let's say, it would be something's really going wrong, we need real focus. Them coming down, I know that there would be real comfort by organizations say, these are really great, these are coming down. This is not something I would be like, well done, guys. It would be, one of the things I talk to my team about now is how many root causes we've removed, for example. Really great investigations, and we find a really gnarly root cause that's present in multiple locations. That for me, fantastic. And so, one of my team said to me recently, like in the last 8 months, we've removed like 78 root causes from multiple sites. That's a bells and whistles moment. That's like
that's nice. A great way of measuring success. Yeah.
So that would be what I would celebrate.
Yeah. So how do you? Sorry, I'm just throwing loads of questions at you.
That's what we're here for.
Good. How do you measure? And I appreciate you probably won't be able to go into specific details because of confidentiality and stuff like that. But how do you measure your team's success? So there'll be safety professionals, right, within your team.
Yeah.
And obviously you report on the statistics because the board needs to know that, and that drives good conversations, which affects change.
Yeah.
You're obviously in a position where you've got safety professionals working for you. What does their success look like to you?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's always very, very bespoke in terms of what their remit is, what their capability is, what they can affect. And there is always going to be drop in harm, but not, typically you'd measure your teams on like reduction in LTIs, reduction in the lost time frequency, but I don't do any of that. Never have done, don't like it. But those top measures, I'm trying to think obviously sensitively about what I'm saying as well. So probably going to push back to an old
because they're going to listen and be like, can't fucking believe she said this.
So I'll go back to previous employment, and what I tend to do whenever I structure my teams purposefully is I give people full accountability for a specific area. Like, this is you, so you can own it end to end, and you can really feel like you have license to go after it. So it's really important to me never to have blurred edges. And in one of my previous organizations, I had, let's say, a head of like transport. And for me, the measure would be something quite specific, like reduction in incidents per million miles traveled. So let's just say really traditional metric. When we sit down about that, the interesting thing at the end of that year is, let's say that went off the scale, massive. Did that individual, did she fail? Well, what's the context? What's happened? What changed? And actually, especially over COVID and things like that, loads of things changed on the road. Even the license agreements, if you would drive things like HGVs, they all changed. We removed license conditions for reversing HGVs, blah, blah. What's the context? Because I would really celebrate her if it all dropped. but I would want to know how she affected that, or whether the business was just fantastic and the employees were just doing great. And the same as if it goes Pete Tong, like what's actually happened then? Because again, it can't just immediately be the fault or the success of the individual. The context matters. So I think there are definitely traditional measures. I like to see claims come down, but I also like to see things like defensibility. How are we skilling individual locations to really understand how to build a pack? If something goes wrong, do they understand how to really take care of themselves and actually take care of their area and say, actually, I know this is the evidence that I need. So I will also target things like defensibility. And that's not one person making us more defensible. It's really arming a local location and a manager to say, I actually know how to take care of me when it goes wrong. So stuff like that I would measure, and is a measure of success for me.
It's interesting that, like, when you're talking about that of like, oh, defensibility or whatever it is, but like it's that thing of response matters. And we talk about in leadership of like your response matters. And I think it's actually a great way of measuring for a safety professional, if you've safety people on your team, of how they respond. So their stats are going up. How are they responding? Incidents are happening. How are they responding? How are they supporting their teams? That kind of stuff is it's really cool. Really like that.
I quite like an arbitrary financial measure, and this so go with it. Go with me on this. But to say we as a profession have overcomplicated safety is an understatement, right? Too much paper, too much process, too much everything. It's just garbage after garbage most places. And you're like, how do we find the great in here? And how do we shrink it right back to its essentials for the organization, the people doing the job, working at the sharp end who are very busy? So I will very, very often throw a chunky financial measure, like a measure of success is ripping X amount of money out of how, making it cheaper basically to do safety, whether you measure it in time or cash or whatever. But I never give anybody a thing to aim for, like just your own license. You know your area, you know your people, you know your policies. When we get to the end of the year, come play. And I always make it like a cross thing for the team. Everybody will feed into like a joint file and they'll put their successes in. The things that would stagger you, that people, once they understand, why is this success and why are we doing this? Well, it's a business success because it's financial. Brilliant. But actually, we can't do safety great for the organization unless we're doing it simply. So defining success for a profession and for us, for me, one of the things for safety is simple safety. Are we just doing it really punchy? Does it really take care of people? Matt, the things people find to rip up and like stuff that usually just stick a date on, and you'll just like, yeah, that's fine. A 50-page risk assessment. Yeah, we'll stick a date on. It's like, oh, well, actually, hold on. How many of these are we doing? How long do they take? Who has to read them, sign them, revise them? Do we need 50 pages? And the things people will go after and generate savings from, it's a lovely thing for the organization to see, and it gets people really pumped. And it changes the reputation of safety from a no to a they're really showing up for us as a business unit.
Yeah.
And then the team are like, I'm doing great things. I'm making it simpler. I'm a team player and I'm helping the business. And it really swells passion. And you get savings coming out of all sorts of places. And never have I ever yet gone, oh, what did you change that for? Like somebody back. We don't need safety equipment in that factory, and we've thrown it all away. Like, we've never done that, or we don't need to do like our maintenance work or whatever. Like, never have had a crazy one. But really, really great things like rationalizing cleaning products, for example. Why have we got 57 versions of the truth? And actually, we just need to make it really simple for people. Oh, we've accidentally saved tens of thousands of pounds. Brilliant. So yeah, I just like give people something to go after that they can go find in the context of their own role. It's really fun, actually. Sound well nerdy, that's really fun. But
well, it's empowering, isn't it? And I think once you give people the ability to kind of own their own success, that they will shape that and just go for it.
And they know more than you, right? That's the whole thing about a team. Yeah.
And the more we talk about this, and the point that Elisa made earlier was great, brilliant actually. That sometimes it's about how people respond. So it's not necessarily about the quantitative and the figures and the data.
Yeah,
that will do what it will do, but it's how you as a professional respond to that. So and then it kind of leans into that qualitative kind of space of what you've done to lean into whatever's going on.
yeah.
And actually, is a lot of our success in the safety professional about sort of hearts and minds and how you make people feel on what you do and how you interact and engage and all that kind of stuff. So it is difficult to measure because there is sort of no measure there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I was just having a thought as you were talking there, and I know we're sort of coming to the end of our time, that I wonder whether the real success for our profession and the reason it's so hard to define is because really, if we're doing a great job, what we've done is make the safety of people that work for our organizations matter to other people. Yeah. And you can't measure that. But the more people care, the more people watching, the more people advocating and saying, oh, that doesn't look, that I don't really understand what you're doing, but that doesn't look safe. And they're not a safety professional. You can't measure it, but damn, you can feel that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's is it a feeling?
Yeah.
It kind of, it reminds me of this thing of like, where you could be succeeding, right, in making great changes and implementing great systems and all the rest. But what I noticed with a lot of safety professionals, there are some who have the fucking X factor, right? They have that something that everyone just gets on with them, loves to see them come and have the crack, have the man, all the rest, make change. And they're all about like driving culture change, whatever you want to call it. But they leave. They move on, they get plucked up, they move on to the next place, and the arse falls out of it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, fuck, then how successful were you? If it can't stand up without you.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many businesses where the safety is fantastic, but the minute that superstar goes, the arse falls out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's back to how successful were you? If you can't make it sustain without you, and it's not systemized, then
I love it.
Oh, and lads, it's time to start gathering our thoughts and wrapping it up,
So there is a phrase that you've made me think about, and it's really sat with me. I only heard it about 2 months ago, and I've used it twice already. And it's, you're not a leader until you've created a leader that can create another leader. And I think that's what you're talking about, isn't it? It's like the leader should be able to go, and you should have created so many other leaders. And sort of tying back to that version of success, have you made it matter to everybody else? So much so that they just breathe this stuff. And all BP was like famous for ages, wasn't it? About having like this amazing safety culture and hold the handrail and no thing was too small. I don't know the safety leader there, and I'm sure they've had plenty of turnaround of safety leaders. And yet, and I'm not saying it's the great culture or the right culture, but the standard's always been very high. And it doesn't seem to be attached to any one person. It seems to be attached to the business. So,
but they're happy to watch the world burn. So anyway, sorry, can't help it.
But I think maybe that's it. Maybe the measure of success, the reason it's so difficult to land on, is because it's about making it truly matter in a generative sense, so that it just keeps going to others, and especially to those that are not safety professionals.
Yeah, good point.
What a magic. Well, Sam, I have to say, it was a fantastic question, and I love the framing of it as well, to really get the juices flowing on traditional but also individual. I'm going to go and have a reflect about what I think success is for me, actually, after this. But it's been an absolute bloody pleasure. Really this one. Yeah, you're more than welcome. Come back anytime. Any other questions, Sam? You let us know.
I'm sure I've got a couple knocking around somewhere.
Lovely. Well, I think this is probably a really lovely time to wrap up. So thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Speak. We have had a wonderful time, and we hope you have too. See you next time.
See ya.
See ya.